I discovered that I made 3 mistakes with my first Etsy listing, and one of them cost me a substantial portion of the profit on my first sale and could have caused me big issues with the first customer. Hi, I'm Kevin. I started Beam & Board Co. a few weeks ago to build on my experience as a hobby woodworker. Follow along as I share the behind the scenes of the successes and the failures as I learn to make and sell products online. Okay, so let's get into it. What are the 3 things that I did wrong with my first Etsy listing? Well, the first problem I noticed very quickly is that I only made one product that was ready to be listed on the store. That meant that when people came to my store, they only had one item to view, and there wasn't an inventory of things for people to look at and potentially buy. So I have made quite a few items that could be sold, but they're just not things that I'm ready to list on Etsy at this time. So I had the cutting board from the previous video, and I was able to upload it around the same time that I published that video. And one of the issues that I found with promoting an Etsy store on YouTube is that it does drive traffic to that store. So I had a number of views coming in, but I only had this one item listed for sale. So these are potential customers that have seen my store, but only seen the one product for sale. So the lesson that I've learned here is that I should have spent maybe a little more time preparing an inventory to list on Etsy before I went live with the Etsy store. Problem number 2, I discovered that I wasn't adequately prepared to photograph these items. In my first attempt, well, it really didn't turn out that great. I probably could have put some better pictures on that first listing. But I was working with what I had available to me. And I realized really quick that it was going to take more than just my phone and a white backdrop to get some good pictures of these items. So for photos, I'm actually going to upgrade to just a miniature studio that I found on Amazon. And I'll link the one that I found in the description. But this is just a very simple one. It doesn't provide any lighting. I do plan on upgrading to one that includes some lighting later on, but right now I'm just using some shop lights and some other backgrounds that I have available to me to provide plenty of light, both for the photographs for Etsy and also for the YouTube videos. It's an investment that needs to be made, and very soon something that I'll add to the shop. And the third mistake, this is the mistake that actually cost me. Now, not significantly, but it did cost me because I didn't have the shipping materials prepared. I didn't have boxes. I didn't have packing material. The stuff that you need to actually ship an item, I didn't have those things on hand. In the past, when I have sold items online, which many years ago I tried selling on eBay, and never as a store, just as an individual trying to send some of the old junk I had out the door, but I just went to the post office and used what they had on hand. But I really don't want to do that with an Etsy store, especially when I'm trying to build a brand, trying to build potentially a business. I don't want to take a cutting board that I just spent quite a few hours, a couple days making, and then listing and selling online, and just take it to the post office and drop it in whatever box it would fit in and ship it off to a customer. I would rather have something that's actually presentable for the customer when they get this item. So I didn't have those things on hand, and I listed that cutting board for sale on Etsy. And the reason that cost me is I discovered real quickly that boxes weren't really available to show up on, say, like Amazon Prime. I was looking on Thursday hoping that I would get something by Friday so I would hit that 1 to 3 day shipping time frame that I had set for myself on the store. And all of them were showing shipping the following Wednesday or Thursday. And then I looked outside of Amazon and found that most of these suppliers did have boxes on hand that they could ship, but expedited shipping charges cost quite a bit. And a package of boxes is heavy. So if you expedite that, there is a pretty substantial cost to it. So it ended up costing me about an additional $20 to $30 to get a pack of boxes in. Now, I will be able to use all these boxes that I ordered on future orders, but I had to pay extra up front to get them. And $20 to $30 is right around what I made in profit off of this board. I probably made a little bit more than that. But making one cutting board at a time, there's not going to be much profit because it's so slow going. You really need production and to be making lots of units at one time for it to be profitable. So to make one item and then lose $20 to $30 on it is pretty significant. So my recommendation would be think about how you want to ship these items. Think about the size of the item. This is definitely a lesson learned for me, and I'm already doing this with other projects that I'm working on, and I'm trying to make batches of projects that will all fit into a selection of boxes that I have either on hand or that I can get fairly quick. And I think this is just going to be a help for success early on because I don't want to spend a significant amount up front to do this. Remember, I'm trying to potentially do this as a business, and while there is some investment up front, there's no point in losing all of that investment just on stocking up on shipping and packing materials. So for me, I'm going to think through, how do I want to pack these items in a box? How do I want them to ship? What do I want the presentation to be for the customer when they open this box? So all those things, just putting them together and coming up with a game plan before I list many more items. So for everything that I currently have on the store, I have obtained all the shipping materials needed to make that happen. So that's the 3 mistakes that I discovered that I've made. And while there may be others that I've made and I've just not realized them yet, these mistakes, well, I want to learn from them. And I want to share them with you so that if maybe you're doing this or have plans to do this, you could potentially learn from these mistakes and it might be a help to you. So here's kind of a recap, just putting it all together of what I hope that you might learn from this video. And one is have an inventory available when you list your first item on Etsy. While it is good to kind of put your toes in the water and find out if this is what you want to do or not, just listing one item means that everyone who comes to your store, well, they have no selection. They only have one thing to look at. And to me, it just doesn't build any reputation as someone trying to build a business. So have a handful of items, just an inventory, and maybe make it things that you could restock easily, things that you could easily turn another one out and repost or relist on Etsy. But just have something available for the customers to look at when they arrive at your store. Second, make sure that if you're going to sell items online that you've brushed up on maybe some photography skills. I'm going to share in some future videos what works for me, but just make sure that you have at least some skill or learn some skill in photography, especially of just these flat items and stuff that you would throw together for doing an online sale. I discovered real quick it's not just as easy as throw it on the workbench and take a picture of it. And while you can do that, that doesn't produce something that draws people in. And last, gather any packing materials. Just have a plan. Be prepared to ship. Don't wait until you list to discover that you don't have what you need on hand to get the product out the door and to your buyers. So just come up with a plan. What do you want it to look like? What materials do you need to make that happen? And order those and have them on hand before you go public with these listings. I want to give just a word of encouragement to anyone who's possibly considering doing something like this. You can't succeed at anything if you don't try. And the failure rate for not trying is 100%. So if there's something that you're thinking about doing, go out and try it. You may fail, you may run into some issues, but the only way to succeed is to first try. So one of the things I want to do on this channel, and I've mentioned it in previous videos, is I want to share the successes and the failures. Sure, I could simply just share the wins and make it like there were no losses, but that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're doing here. So I'm going to share these failures, and hopefully it might help someone who is going along in this process as well. Maybe you don't have any interest in shooting YouTube videos, but you are wanting to learn how to make stuff and sell it on Etsy. So my goal is to share what I'm learning as I go with you here on YouTube and potentially help someone else out along the way. And finally, I want to say this. These mistakes that I've shared with you today, they may seem like fairly common sense to most people. But I made these mistakes, and the reality is someone else may too. So hopefully you can take something from this, and if you're trying to start out selling online, you might be able to avoid having these problems that I've run into in the last week. Now, if you like this video and you want to follow along as I continue on this journey, well, just hit subscribe. I plan to upload a new video, at least one video per week, sharing what's going on in the shop, what's going on with the online sales, and any tips and tricks I learn along the way. And I'll also share some of the builds and how I do them in my shop, and some just tips and tricks for woodworking as well. So again, if you're interested in that type of material, just click subscribe, and I hope to see you on future videos. And if you have any advice or any tips that you've learned along the way, maybe you're an Etsy seller, a woodworker yourself, someone who does crafts and sells them online. If you have any tips or advice, just share those below in the comment section. I'd love to see what you have to say and possibly have a conversation with you about it. And I'll see you on the next build.